I don't think I need to speak for what we're about to do. I think the B-roll speaks for itself. And, well, if I simply just read the patch notes, this would have been our build multiple days ago. You just scroll down a little bit on this video, click the little subscribe button, and then go to the comments at me and call me an idiot. Anyways, kitties, so what we're going to be doing to our Spellburst Bing 2 build is we are going to be re-rolling from Chain Lightning over to a Barrier Burst build. In Season 10, they reworked my single favorite item in the game, Necklace of Firebird, to now allow you to 6-link the skill that comes with it, while at the same time making it work with Spellburst. This is a build that I played at the end of Season 9. I dumped over 100,000 FE into on a Ignite variant with Gamma 3, and well, it's now quite disgusting on Bing 2 as well. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing all the gear they're going to need to swap over to this, as this is going to be what our build's going to be for the rest of the season, as this build is substantially faster than any Chain Lightning build ever will be. It does about the same amount of DPS, and it is literally immortal in comparison to the actual paper defenses that Chain Lightning has to offer. With this setup, you will have a significantly better time clearing, given this build has straight up 0 buttons in it, and the only thing you have to do is hold down left click to move your character, while basically never worrying about death again. As always, kitties, there will be a build code in the description below, so if you want to bring all this in game, just go over to Pro Builds, import this in there, and you can very easily see everything for yourself to make following along with this a little bit easier. Please do make sure to go suppress like on it, as that does help out a little bit. And with all that said, kitties, let's just get into it and talk about this insanity. So what exactly is happening on your screen right now? Well, all these explosions are simply being triggered by a 3-item combo that synergize together really well. First off, we have Necklace of Firebird that just triggers a level 20 Barrier Burst every time you take damage. Barrier Burst is going to be your main damage, and it's just simply going to do base damage equal to 75% of your current barrier. Barrier is a defensive buff that you're going to be able to generate for yourself through the ring suffix we're going to get that gives you a 100% chance to generate it every time you move 5 meters. And it just simply takes 20% of your current energy shield in life and gives it to you as a shield. Due to that, energy shield is going to be one of the main scalers in the build, because the more energy shield we get, the bigger our barriers, and the bigger our barriers, the bigger our hit damage. Finally, to trigger all this consistently, we're then going to be running a chest plate with either a priceless or sweet dream Apix on it that makes you take 10 damage every 0.1 seconds. So with that, you're just going to hold left click, you're going to move forward, your ring generates you barriers, your chest plate constantly hits you, which triggers your necklace, which then does big booms that can crit, and triggers spell bursts, which is why you see so many of them constantly going off. As I mentioned, ES is going to be the main scaler for this build, so the rest of our gear is just going to be grabbing yourself as much ES as possible. The starting budget for this is going to be around 1,000 FE or so, which should pretty comfortably be able to get you to farm D7. And then if you want to move on to T8, it should be doable for about 3,000 to 4,000 FE or so. That is quite expensive starting upfront cost to get this going, but given that this is not Chain Lightning, all of our gear in the mid game and end game, once you get your foot in the door for the build, is going to be substantially cheaper than what we had to pay for before. So while the upfront cost is a little bit higher, the rest of your gear is honestly pretty dirt cheap. The gear that I'm going to show you here is going to be a little bit more advanced than what I expect you to have, as at this point I put about 6,000 to 7,000 FE into my build, but this should still get the point across of what you're looking for. On my helmets, I just have ES rolls along with Barrier Shield, as this is basically just 60% more damage, along with just critical strike chance and resistance rolls on our suffixes. All of your suffixes are just going to be a mix of crit and res, and currently I'm not even anywhere close to being res capped because it's just not really that relevant. As you push into Profound T8, you probably should res cap if you want to, as that will make you a little bit tankier, but I've been able to farm just fine, and I'm currently level 97 without even caring about resistances one bit. So it's up to you if you want to just focus on nothing but resistances, and you could drop a little bit of damage just to be tankier, or just go full out on damage instead. For chestplate, the same thing is going to happen here, just energy shield rolls, intelligence, because our skill scales off of int, so it's a pretty big multiplier, and then just crit damage and resistance rolls. Same goes for the gloves. ES, crit chance, crit damage, resistances, and the same thing goes for the boots, but here we're going to be focusing a little bit more on movement speed, as well, movement speed is effectively a DPS increase for the build, and it just makes it clear that much faster. Hasten is really good because just 8% more movement speed, just a multiplier, and then try to grab yourself a big movement speed roll, as that's going to feel very good. For both of your rings, you simply just have to get the barrier roll on one of them. Having it on both is literally nothing, and then the rest of the stats on here are just ES, damage, and resistances, crit chance, crit damage. It's honestly up to you. Finally, for your weapon, this is basically exactly what your ideal starting weapons are going to look like, with int, spell damage, fire skill levels, and then cast speed, spell burst charge speed, and Ellie damage. We do actually care about cast speed a little bit, as we do need to make our spell burst trigger fast enough, as there is a soft cap for how much cast speed we need to be able to have our spell burst ready to go for every other barrier burst that we do. I don't exactly know exactly how much cast speed that is, but the point is that if you just get cast speed on both your weapons along with spell burst charge speed, you are good to go. For our belts, we're also just going to be running a Dawnbreak just because there really isn't any other good belt to run. You can use an ES belt if you want to, but I feel like a Intelligence Dawnbreak with a good fervor roll on it is going to give you more DPS to begin with. And then finally, for the blending optics, I decided to put 40% defense on chest armor, as this is dirt cheap and a very solid blend. For your skills, these are going to change quite a bit from what we're running in Chain Lightning. Barrier Burst is now going to automatically equip itself in your active skill, and we're just going to put Psychic Burst, AoE, Overload, Grudge, and increase damage on it. If you look at the tooltip for it, you might question why we're stacking so many additional levels, as it doesn't actually do anything. And well, it's just a tooltip issue with Barrier Burst, given it got reworked this season. But I have gone and validated it myself and can confirm that additional skill levels does actually increase the damage of Barrier Burst like it did in Season 9. To accompany this, we're also going to be running ourselves a Scorch for curses, as they're way too good and we need a way to be able to trigger Grudge. And then we're going to just be running Blurry Steps for movement speed, 4 stars, as this is going to be the only way for us to really generate energy shield on bosses, and then Mana Boil for additional damage. We are specifically running these 3 because we are also going to be playing around multi-coupling equation on Bing's tree, which gives you maximum spell burst per 2 empower and defensive skills. And later on, at a higher budget level, we are going to actually be removing Scorch from the build, so we can have 4 empower and defensive skills in total for another +1 spell burst. Lastly, for your auras, just slap on a spell amplification, a charge flames, domain expansion, and energy fortress, and you should have a very good time. For your passive tree, this is basically going to stay exactly the same as Chain Lightning. There are a few minor changes here, so I do recommend for you to go and import the build planner into your game so you can see exactly what we changed here. But the only major thing to really mention is that we're grabbing ourselves a new Eternal Prism, and we're specifically looking for Haze, as movement speed is very important, and this just gives you 32% increased movement speed. And ideally, you want to go and find yourself one that also has 8% movement speed on medium legendary talents, as we are hitting 4 of them here. So in total, this Haze is giving me 64% increased movement speed. The real major change here is going to be with your Divinity Slates. For our pedigree, you are now going to be looking for either Play Safe or Shell. It doesn't matter which one you get, but you just want one of the 2, so you can pick up both of them through Magister. And then the rest of your slates are basically going to be completely focused around getting as much barrier shield as possible. This is effectively just a raw multiplier for a build, given that barrier is just 20% of your energy shield. So the more ES you get, the bigger the baseline barrier is. But then if I were to get 100% barrier shield, instead of it being 20% of my ES, it's 40% of my ES, so that just doubles my damage. The way we're going to be fitting this in is going to be through Corners of Divinity and Fallen Starlights, just because Corners of Divinity only take 3 total slots versus normal slates, which take 4, and then Fallen Starlights, which only take 2, but those are going to be a little bit more expensive to fit in here. You don't need to start off with Corners of Divinity if you can't afford them. Another option is just go and grab yourself a bunch of God of Machine slates, as in the Steel Vanguard tree, there is 40% barrier shield, which can roll on those, and you could just run 4 of those instead. Ideally, Corners of Divinity and Fallen Starlights are better because you can fit 3 of these and then 3 Fallen Starlights, so you have a total of 6 slates in here in comparison to the 5 that I'm currently running, but you could always upgrade these later, and this is going to be a pretty good way for you to generate additional damage as you push further into the build. In terms of our hero points, nothing here is changing other than we are swapping from Hyper Resonance to Multi-Coupling Equation, and then the only other thing I really want to mention is that for your hero memories, you do want to put more focus on getting energy shield if possible, as it's going to be a very large DPS increase. And ideally, for your memory of progress, I would recommend to go look for a movement speed one, as that feels very good in this build. You don't need a double movement speed one like the one I have. This is easily over 1000 FE, but just grabbing yourself a movement speed base memory of progress with whatever else you can get on it, energy shield, crit damage, crit chance, should make a pretty large difference. Lastly, I do want to talk about pack spirits again. Again, use whatever pack spirits you have. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money or do anything like that. But the point is that we are going to want to grab ourselves specific kin sets that are, well, going to be very silly. First off, you're going to want to go and grab yourself 4 Kismets of Ripple. These just give you up to 10% increased skill area for each spell burst that you've done. So with 4 of these, you can gain 40% increased AoE per spell cascade, stacking on top of itself, making the final burst just basically be half of your screen. I found that these are really important when it comes to clear. You don't need these to start off as they are quite expensive at around 100 FE each, but do try to upgrade into these as soon as you can afford so. At the same time, for your microfades, just simply slap on as many max ES ones as possible, as these are going to be more than good enough to get you going. Pretty much none of the stats on any of your spirits are going to beat both ES and AoE, so just simply replace them as you can with whatever seems like is the weakest options. With all that put together, your build should just be online and you should start just deleting everything. You literally just have to hold down left click and then the whole build is going to play itself with you having to do no inputs. I actually really like this because then it makes it really fun to play on mobile where you don't have to constantly use mobility skills, which was kind of an issue with chain lightning because my God, does frigid transmission feel awful to use on a phone? And you can just enjoy the insane amount of explosions that you do. One thing I want to mention, because it is quite bad on the eyes, and if that's an issue for you, you can simply just come over to settings, go over to your graphics, and just turn down your character skill, effect, transparency, and brightness. And if you turn them literally all the way down, the explosions just completely go away. So if you are someone who's photosensitive or you might have some sort of eye issues due to the constant flashing, you can also play this build without any problems. With that said, I hope you cuties have fun with this. I am so sorry for not reading the patch notes and realizing that this got changed so drastically between Season 9 and Season 10 because we would have been playing this days ago. I am super excited to push this build further because there are quite a lot of very silly upgrades for this I'm really looking forward to make. It's going to be fun doing a few more update videos on this to just push this build to the absolute limit. If you have any questions, do feel free to leave a comment in the comments below and I'd be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. I also stream on Twitch every single day, so feel free to come by there and ask me your questions live, or if you just simply want to see how the build does and how the progress on it is going to go, feel free to come and join our community and hang out with the other kitties, either on Twitch or on Discord. With that said, kitties, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have fun with Barrier Burst if you're swapping over to it with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.